we've got this awesome NFL draft guide from you, 70 prospects. You have the badges on there for each of these players. And what we want to do is we're going to take some of the, I guess, the most interesting badges that we saw here for skills. And we want you to take one of those and match them to a player that's here in your rookie draft guide. This doesn't necessarily have to be like a ranking or the best one at it. It's just, who do you think most represents that skill? So let's throw this out. The first one here for the rookie superpower here, pinpoint accuracy. That's what you have for quarterbacks in here. So which rookie do you think of first with that one?
And Danny, real quickly, I want to say it was tough narrowing this down to our 12 favorite badges. Like, you absolutely killed in this rookie guide. There was like Alfredo and I spent a half hour on a call saying, like, which 12 do we want to focus? Originally it was 10 and we couldn't narrow it down to 10. So we stuck with 12.
Good. Yeah. We've expanded. Yeah. We've expanded the list over the last couple of years. We stole some of Steven Ruiz's quarterback attributes ones, over the last couple of years, which is fun. Added got that dog in him, which is pretty self-explanatory.
Which we'll get to that one.
So yeah, we put a lot of thought into all of those, so I appreciate that. That means a lot. For pinpoint accuracy, this one was tough because there was a couple guys that came to mind, but I ultimately settled on Michael Penix from Washington. And I think the reason I thought of him on that one is he has more of the quote unquote downfield handoff type throws than I think any other quarterback in this class, whereas it literally just like lofts down, floats into the hands. It's like the easiest ball to catch, right? Just like he just puts it right exactly where the receiver needs it. And so when I put together when I was like watching tape, I'll like put together little like highlight reels of each quarterback, and Michael Penix's like laser show highlight reel is pretty amazing. He just has some incredible throws on tape. And so he was the guy I thought of. I think he does have obviously a lot of concerns when it comes to being able to toggle through his different speeds and like take a little something off the ball. He's just kind of a really, one speed thrower most of the time. But I would say just when he's throwing the ball downfield, he just puts it right exactly pinpoint accurate on the hands of the receiver. So that was the guy I thought of.
Now, I think Penix is underrated as a passer for sure, but how much of that are we attributing to Odunze's ball tracking ability? Because it seems like he always just finds a way to get directly under the ball, even if it's not perfect. And we see that in the NFL with a guy like Tyreek Hill. Like, you don't even have to throw it to him. You could just throw it in the general vicinity, and he's going to find a way to get underneath it. So I think Penix is very underrated as a passer, but do you think some of that could just be Odunze making him look good?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, especially it's like the contrast between Penix's receivers and, for instance, Drake May's receivers, who are maddening to me. I think that is a massive deal, because obviously it's not just Rome Odunze, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk. I like both of those guys a lot as well. And I think he just had, of course, the benefit of playing with three very high level receivers. That's not necessarily a knock on him, but they certainly helped elevate his game, make him look good at certain times. Cause he's the type of quarterback who will, like F it, he's down there somewhere type of guy, like where he'll just throw it up and trust his receivers to come down with it. A lot of the time, most of the time, they did come down with the football. And so, like when you contrast that to a guy like Drake May, who I think there are some concerns with his accuracy and consistency, like putting the ball in a spot where his receiver can catch it. But like at the same time, some of that is the receivers not going to the right depth, not going to the right spot. The timing is off, the rhythm is off, the chemistry is off. So I just think, that's something that you kind of have to think about, but not knock a guy or not like put a guy too high in either direction with that.
Now, you've got Michael Penix as your number 36 prospect here in the draft guide. There's been like a lot of buzz sort of pushing him up here late. He had a really nice pro day where he ran a fast 40. Take that for what you will. Yeah. But because not a lot of opportunities for him to run in a straight line like that. But
well, I think actually like when you think about it, it's kind of similar to the CJ Stroud thing. I don't think I'm not comping him to CJ Stroud in any way other than I remember coming into the year last year, everyone was like, oh, CJ Stroud, he's a statue. He never scrambles. He never does anything out of structure. All he does is sit in the pocket. You know what I mean? But there were flashes of plays here and there where he would get out of the pocket, run around, make plays out of structure. I think the same could be said about Michael Penix. It's not common. It's not often, but I feel like he flashed it enough times to make you believe he might be able to do that, might be a part of his game. So I was actually like, my trigger was don't react to pro days, but like the speed and athleticism he showed, that is actually something I think like the when they go out and play catch at the pro day, like to me, that does not move the needle whatsoever. But the fact that he was, 4.5 guy, there was Washington accounts tweeting out that they had him clocked in the 4.4s. I don't know about that. Like whatever, there's like a tenth of a second, when your hand timing is probably pretty common, but I think just the athleticism, he had a good vert. When you look at his like physical dimensions, he has really big hands, really long arms, really big wingspan. I don't know. There's a lot to like about him. And I think I'm probably a little bit higher on him than the consensus, even though I don't have him as a first rounder.
I mean, we heard the same thing about Justin Fields, right? Because there was like that Ohio State system just never really asked quarterbacks to run. And we heard so much like he's not going to rush in the NFL because he didn't rush in college. We heard the same thing about CJ Stroud. And sometimes these college systems just ask the quarterback to stand in the pocket. But if they can display that athleticism at the combine, it's absolutely worth taking note of.
Yeah, I think it's just with Penix, obviously, you're not going to ask him to be like a, run the option or something like that. Yeah, he's not going to, because of his injury histories, several shoulder injuries, several knee injuries. You'd be pretty insane, I think, to ask him to run around a lot. But the idea is you want a guy who can do stuff out of structure and do stuff when the play breaks down, because honestly, the NFL pass rushers are too good. Plays are going to break down a lot. It's going to happen a lot. I think one of the things Michael Penix brings that is maybe the most intriguing thing about him is his pressure to sack ratio. Basically, he doesn't take hardly any sacks. And I think that can lead you to believe a couple of things. Number one, like if you're against him, it's basically, it's just the offense. Like he has all these great receivers. He just gets rid of the ball too quickly, blah, blah, blah. If you're pro Michael Penix, which I tend to be, it's just he knows where all his answers are. He has an answer for every pressure. He knows where his outlets are. He can read the defense pre-snap and know what guys are going to be open if he gets pressure from the left or the right or whatever. And he has an incredibly, incredibly low sack rate and pressure to sack rate. So when he gets pressured, he gets rid of the football. He finds his outlet. And so, and this is like, if you're looking at the last like 10 draft classes, it's like historic low. It's like one of the lowest. It's like 6% or something like that. And so to me, that is a really intriguing stat for him. And that's something, because sacks are huge. Obviously, we've been talking about this ad nauseum the last couple of years with Justin Fields. Like, you can't take sacks and succeed in the NFL. Like, Justin Fields has some of the most like insane physical talent, but he takes so many sacks, he's literally going to be on the bench this year, probably. So, I don't know. That's pretty intriguing to me about Michael Penix.
Yeah, I think Michael Penix might be getting a little miscast by some people as sort of like the statue that gets rid of the ball quick. Maybe a lot of people are thinking Tua when they see Michael Penix, and that's not quite there. I love your comp that you have from shades of Southpaw Geno Smith, because that's a lot of what I saw as well. Let's continue on here with quarterbacks. The next one here we have is arm strength. Now, this could really be any one of these top quarterbacks. So where are you going with arm strength?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is Caleb Williams, but I did him for a different tag. So I went with curveball here, Spencer Rattler, who he, to me, like, obviously he's probably not going to be a first round pick. I'd say he's more likely to be a second or third round pick. But man, when you watch him play, he has the most effortless arm strength. He just really doesn't look like he has to he doesn't have to like crow hop to throw the football. He doesn't have to put his whole body into it. He has incredible torque, ability to just deliver a frozen rope downfield on these deep outs. He can hit a guy in stride. He has a couple plays on tape from this last season where he's like falling away, spinning away from the pocket, still launches up like a 50-yard bomb. So I would say Spencer Rattler in particular to me is intriguing just because he has that pure natural arm talent. Now, there's obviously issues with some of the other aspects of his game, but I don't know. That's like that foundation is pretty intriguing to me as a day two guy.
You won't get any pushback from either of us. This is a very pro.
Are you guys pro show. Rattler? Okay,
yes,
cool.
Very much so.
Do you think that maybe like? Oh, go.
I was just gonna say, to me, he's like the ideal day two dice roll. Like, you know what I mean? Former 5-star guy. Obviously, the talent is there, the physical talent's there, but there's some things that are holding him back. Number one, he's like 6 foot tall, which is never great in the NFL. So that's one knock against him. I think this last year, he was very. This is sort of it depends on like the eye of the beholder. He was very much just willing to take the check down. His ADOT was really low. He didn't have very many big time throws. Like he had one of the lowest big time throw rates in this draft class among the top quarterbacks. Just not necessarily too aggressive this year. I think over the years he's been a little more aggressive. This year he kind of, I guess you could say he matured, and he's just like taking what the defense gives him, which could be construed as a good thing, or could be construed as like he doesn't push the ball down the field enough. It's one of those things where it's eye of the beholder. So, but overall, I think he matured in his game. He seems to have matured from a personality point of view. As I think he was probably, humbled by the whole Oklahoma experience where he got benched for Caleb Williams and had to transfer. And I saw him at the combine. I was pretty impressed with like his poise and the way he, approached the media session. That doesn't mean a lot, but that means a little bit. I think, just from like these teams are going to be putting a lot on you. And I think having the maturity to like handle a lot of stuff is important. So I don't know. I'm the Seahawks guy, if my team took Spencer Rattler in the second or third round, I'm pretty stoked about it.
Yeah, and getting benched for Caleb Williams, like everybody acts like it's this knock. Like you're getting benched for the best player in the country. Yeah. Like there's worse players you could get benched for. And he's had playing 3 systems throughout his career. I mean, he's been through a lot, but agree that, he's not going to be a first round guy, but he's got just as high of a ceiling as just about any quarterback in this class.
Yeah, and I think, especially nowadays with the way that college football is set up with transfer portal and everything, we see guys, I mean, obviously now in retrospect, this isn't the greatest thing, but like Justin Fields had to, go to a different place to pan out, or Joe Burrow like had to transfer before he kind of broke out. There's like a long list of guys who I think had to like wait their turn or transfer or, whatever. Jayden Daniels, for instance, this year, like he ended up transferring and sort of blossomed after transferring. So, not necessarily getting benched, but I think you guys have to kind of land in the right system to really thrive.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't like all of the quarterbacks that are in this draft class at one point, except for maybe Drake May, we got like Caleb Williams transferred, Jayden Daniels transferred, Michael Penix transferred, Bo Nix transferred, Spencer Rattler transferred. We've got like 5 of the top 7 there that have all transferred at some point. Like, I don't think it's this big stigma that it used to be anymore.
Yeah. I mean, in Caleb Williams' case, it's obviously he was just following his coach, coming off the Heisman or whatever. But, I guess he won the Heisman the first year at USC. I can't remember the timeline, but still like, his is like very obvious reason, but like for the rest of them, it was like, what's the situation around me? What's the coaching? What's the receiver situation? Like, let's go to somewhere that's going to make my skill set really pop or whatever. And so, I don't think you can necessarily knock Spencer Rattler too much for the fact that he got benched to the quote unquote, like the generational prospect, quote unquote, generational prospect like Caleb Williams. So, I'm very intrigued with Spencer Rattler. I want to see where he lands. I think he has starter upside in the NFL.
Okay, so next one that we're going to bring up here is the infinite upside. This could be any prospect. Doesn't have to be a quarterback, but who are you going with here, DK?
I stuck with the quarterback pattern here for a minute. Jayden Daniels, to me, is the guy who has the most upside. I think he kind of has the widest range of outcomes for me. I think, from a high-end comp type of view, like he's as close to Lamar Jackson, I think, as we've seen in the last few years. Certainly not. I don't think he's as good as Lamar Jackson, at least with his legs. I think Lamar Jackson is sort of 101 special talent, in his ability to run. But I think Jayden Daniels adds a lot with his legs. He's very fast, very slippery. I don't even know how to explain it. He can just scoot around the field. He finds ways to like sort of like slalom through the defense, like in a way that,
good word, slalom.
It's like he's not powerful runner, but he just kind of like scoots past guys as he's like going downfield, and they kind of can't catch up with him. It's just like a special talent that he has. He creates these massive like 90-yard runs or 60-yard runs. So clearly he has something special there. But I think, when you add together like his deep ball prowess, he's really, really good throwing outside the numbers down the field. I think that's one of the first things I noticed about him when I started studying, was like almost Russell Wilson-esque moon balls down the sideline. Helps that he had 2 elite explosive receivers, but at the same time, he's putting it up for them and putting it right where they need it to be. And so I think in the perfect world, like, especially from a fantasy point of view, Jayden Daniels has truly like number 1 quarterback potential, in fantasy. And so because he could probably, he has the potential to rush for like 800 plus yards, throw a bunch of touchdowns. Like, this is, MVP of a fantasy season type player.
Now I'm seeing a lot of dynasty rookie drafts where he's fallen to like the 5th or 6th pick. Do you have a strong stance where he should be going? Because I think he should be the number 2 pick, and I wouldn't even think somebody's crazy if they took him ahead of Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams is definitely going to have the longevity, but like Daniels could realistically be the number 1 rookie out of this class.
I know. For me, it's tough because you have to weigh the risk. I think that you see with him as like a potential bust in the NFL. Obviously, like I said before, I think he has a high ceiling, low floor profile as a player. We talked about pressure to sack ratio earlier. Like that's a big talking point right now. I don't want to like. It's not everything. I think it is, but it is like concerning to me that he has a very, very high pressure to sack ratio. And, you know, frankly, there's a lot of other things about his profile, like 50-year senior, you know, late bloomer type of stuff. Obviously, he was pretty good as a freshman, but he had some ups and downs in his college career. You know, it helped obviously that he had incredibly awesome receivers at LSU this year. So I don't know. I think there is some risk to him. I kind of go back and forth on where I have him in my rookie ranks. I haven't published them yet. I'm still playing around with them, but like I'd agree that you could go. I wouldn't take him over Caleb Williams personally, but anywhere from 2 to 5 or 6 is probably where I'd have him. Just depending on how like risk averse you are. Yeah, it's like it truly is. Like I think he could be the number 1 quarterback in fantasy, or you know, his inability to deal with pressure could be like, this is the next Justin Fields or whatever. Like that, I think Justin Fields, especially just kind of completely losing all value as a dynasty asset this offseason has me a little bit skittish on him. But yeah, I think that's, I would not really fault you if you wanted to take him number 2 or number 3, if you needed a quarterback. I wouldn't take him over Caleb Williams personally though.
Yeah, right now on your rankings, you've got Jayden Daniels as your quarterback 3. In your most recent mock draft, you have him going number 2 to the Commanders. Would you say that's more of like the realistic location, or is that more of like your ideal location to pair him up with, you know, Cliff Kingsbury and all that? Like, where do you see him?
I think for him, it's both. I would say, you know, in a realistic scenario, he's probably not falling outside the like top 2 or 3. The most ideal would probably be to send him to a team like the Vikings, who have 3, like, you know, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, you know, a good coaching staff. They're kind of like the perfect landing spot for any rookie. I think the rookie quarterback that lands in Minnesota, assuming there is one, is going to like vault up the dynasty rankings because of that. You know, maybe that's JJ McCarthy. And I think he could end up being like the best quarterback in this class because he lands with the Vikings purely. But I think in a realistic scenario, I'd rather have Jayden Daniels go to the Commanders rather than the Patriots, who are completely bereft of offensive talent. Like whoever lands with the Patriots, like I'm very fearful
it's so scary.
my Drake May love, because I love Drake May. I'm very fearful that my Drake May love is going to end up looking really stupid because he lands with the Patriots, where they have no talent and he's basically asked to do too much. And I mean, look, we saw what happened with Trevor Lawrence in like Jacksonville. Like people are talking about him like he's a huge, massive disappointment. He's a potential bust still. Like, even though I still believe in Trevor Lawrence, like this is year, whatever, how many years is it? 4 years now that he's been around, and like people are still like, I don't know, is he good? And that's like, to me, that's purely almost because of the terrible situation, the hand he was dealt in Jacksonville, especially very early on. And so I'm a huge believer in, you know, situation especially for young quarterbacks. And so I'm fearful that Drake May will land with the Patriots, or whoever will land with Patriots, because I feel like that's just a bad situation for any rookie quarterback.
You got to say Kendrick Bourne and Juju are better than his college receivers, so at least he's got that going for him.
Well, there's that. That's something. Yeah. That's actually a good point. But yes, it's still not great.
Yeah, it's only that the defenses he's going to go up against are a little bit better than the college ones too, Dave. Yeah,
just a bit.
So
yeah.
Sort of evens out. But yeah, the quarterback stuff it's gotten so much harder to try to evaluate, just because there's so many of these like intangible things that you can't really find on film or in the numbers of like, what situation is he going to? How does this work with this coach? How are the practices? Like, there's so many things that it's getting a lot harder to evaluate. So I like that you have kind of that gray area there with these guys. That takes us to our next one that we have here. Instinctual playmaking. This sounds like it could be a quarterback skill.
Yeah.
But I guess it can go anywhere. Where are you going with this one?
Oh, I definitely use this for a lot of different positions, but to me, this was what I reserved for Caleb Williams. I think just, you know, honestly, like he could have been the number one guy for all of these first four: pinpoint accuracy, arm strength, infinite upside, and instinctual playmaking. I want playmaking because I just think he has a pretty rare ability to know where all the pieces on the board are at any given time. He's just so good. It's almost like he's most comfortable when the play breaks down, which is a double-edged sword, by the way. Obviously, I acknowledge that like he needs to play on time and in structure to really succeed in the NFL. I think he can do that. Like, I think people get a little bit over concerned about like some of the freelance stuff that he does, some of the sandlot stuff he does, because it's just like it's a bigger talking point. But like if you made like a cut up of him playing in structure, like he can absolutely just goes out there and like,
which I will say a Bears fan just did. Put together like a 60-minute cut up of him throwing from the pocket and said, look,
60 minutes. Yeah.
Too. Yes.
So I mean, this is like the draft process in a nutshell. Like, let's ignore the 60 minutes of him playing on time and playing in structure. I'll admit, like when I was watching him, I've always been kind of like a huge Caleb Williams fan. I just think his physical talent and his ball control, I don't know what the word is, like his ability to control the football is second to none. In the last couple of years, I think he's just such a natural good thrower of the football. It's incredible. And so I think that's where you get like the Patrick Mahomes comps, is like his ability to throw the football is really, really impressive. I think Aaron Rodgers is another guy that kind of you could compare to him. His just generate velocity when he doesn't look like he has any balance. Like he literally will jump up in the air and throw a football, So, but I think what I was going to say is I remember watching him. I'm like, it's a little bit frustrating sometimes how long he holds the football. Like that's going to be a thing that he has to improve. Like that will be a big part of his development as a pro quarterback. But I do think he can do it. You know what I mean? I think he can do it. I think what the Bears have done, assuming the Bears take him, the Bears have done exactly what you would hope the team that's going to pick the number one quarterback would do. They've got a bunch of veteran playmakers in there. Traded for Keenan Allen, I think, is a brilliant move. That's the type of player that can really elevate a rookie quarterback. Look what he did, helping Justin Herbert. DJ Moore is a guy that you can just get him the football quickly and like let him go do his thing. They got even Gerald Everett, I think, is a little bit of an underrated signing because he's the same type of guy. Like throw him a screen and let him go do his thing. He's one of the best yak creating tight ends of the last few years, even though he is a little bit inconsistent and kind of annoying to watch. I don't know. It's just like they're doing the right things. They have a ascending defense. They have a much more talented offense than they did a couple of years ago. This is like a way, way better landing spot than you see most number one pick teams providing their quarterback. So it makes me even more excited about Caleb Williams. Like I think he was already the best quarterback in this class by a pretty wide margin, in my opinion. And then he's landing in probably the second best situation other than I think Minnesota. So, it's kind of lining up really well for him. And I really, really hope, he can prove everyone wrong in terms of like the people that doubt his ability to like play in structure and on time. Cause I think he can do that.
And I had to fact check myself. It was a 20-minute highlight reel, but I just sent it to you, Danny.
I mean, that's still plenty. That's like a lot. That's a lot of plays in 20 minutes if you're doing a cut up.
It was easy to find because Caleb retweeted it himself. And I also love that about him. So many guys like try to fall in line.
He's very self-aware.
Right. Oh yeah, he cracks me up. He is a great Twitter follow. Like he just leans into it. I'm really excited to see kind of what he blossoms into in his NFL career.
I mean, I don't think you have to worry about his confidence. So
not one bit.
I think honestly, it's like that's a big deal. This is the type of demeanor you want your quarterback to have. I think obviously you want him to be able to back it up. I think physically he can surely back it up. But yeah, again, like I said, like what the Bears have done, I think especially with DJ Moore and Gerald Everett and some of the running backs they have in this group, like the timing and structure thing is going to like probably fade into the background a little bit because they're just going to have, quick hitting plays where they can get the ball to these guys that create yak. It's a little bit like the Dolphins do to like lighten the load for Tua, but it's not the same offense, but like same idea of just like taking some pressure off this guy.
Everywhere.
Yeah, and you never know where it's going to come from. Keenan Allen also, of course, is very good at getting open early in his route. So I don't know. I think it's setting up really well for him. Hopefully he can prove all the doubters wrong.
For me, when I was watching him, you talk about like how he has this great, I don't even, you almost like kind of put it as like confidence. It was almost hard to find a word. Like the way I put it was just, he's got this weird fluidity and body control. Like we always talk about that beat mattering so much for running backs and receivers, and we don't really think about it for quarterbacks. The way he just navigates everything, he plays like one of those kind of like meme Madden videos where you've got like the kid who's playing, he runs his player all the way down the field and all the way back and all the way around and just like outrunning the defense everywhere. That's honestly how it feels watching Caleb Williams film. Like he's just holding on to that ball to be like, okay, I didn't like that play. Let me see no, don't like that. And he just holds on to it forever and ever because I think he's got that confidence that he just can.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this is probably going to sound like a hot take, but I think he could be a running back if he wanted to be. Like he is so good at, I don't know if he has the like true high end speed of like a good running back, but like he's so good at squaring up defenders and like making them miss. So many guys are just jumping and like grasping a cloud of dust when they try and tackle him. I think he's actually underrated for how elusive he is as a runner. And that's part of how he is able to, use like, that's how he's able to make so much stuff happen as this outer structure, Houdini type player is he can make the first guy miss. It's a little bit like Lamar, honestly, like, you know how Lamar can do these little side jukes. There's almost like a grapevine move where you like just jump to the side. It is like a video game type move. He does that. And he has these little spin moves. He can explode like through little gaps in the line and kind of like keep himself free. Like he has a very natural, very, very, like high end ability to avoid tackles. I think that like people don't really talk about it enough because I think they're too worried about him playing in a sandlot manner, but I think he has like a special talent for doing that. So, I think he's just like a physical marvel, honestly. And so, like, it is a worry to me that he's a little bit short. Like that's something that people maybe aren't bringing up enough. He's like 6'1", like 6'1.5", maybe.
I don't know if you heard, but he shrunk from his combine to his pro.
Oh, right.
It's just, oh my God.
The gravity of everyone talking about like, him having a pink phone, I think is like wearing him down, but,
weight of the world on
but
his shoulders.
Honestly, like he is, I think truly a physical marvel. Like his physical tools are incredible.
Yeah, I mean, we're all going to see him go number one. I think he's going to end up going number one in all of the Superflex rookie drafts that people are doing for Dynasty. I think we're just bored. I think we're becoming Caleb Williams. It's gotten that meta that we're just bored and we're just doing dumb things at this point. Let's get to our next one here. Field tilting speed. I think I know which direction you're going with this, but I'm curious to see what your answer is.
I mean, there's a couple guys I could have thrown a curveball with you, but I'm going to do Malik Nabers from LSU, who is just he's explosiveness like embodied or whatever. He's like he is the embodiment of explosiveness. He is everything he does is so much faster, I think, than everybody else around him. It reminds you a little bit of the type of player that Tyreek Hill is. Obviously, very different body types and sizes, but like. The explosiveness that he brings, I think, tilts the field in his direction. Like it tilts the defense has to know where he is at all times. Obviously, I think we could have talked about Xavier Worthy here. We could have talked about Brian.
That's
Thomas
where I thought
here.
you were going. I thought you were going to take the easy way out with Worthy.
Xavier Worthy to me is. I understand he's very fast. I don't think he's a field tilting speed type of guy. He is like essentially how I think of it. Like. The defense doesn't have to tilt all their coverage to his way quite as much, I think, is what you see with Malik Nabers. Like Xavier Worthy was not a very good deep threat this year, like straight up. Like his speed is apparent when he's running after the catch, when he's like catching these little short passes and making guys miss in the short area, which is of course valuable. He reminds me, Xavier Worthy reminds me of Zay Flowers, but Malik Nabers. Malik
Nabers can change direction without losing a step. Like he can make a 45-degree turn without slowing down one bit.
Yeah, and he reminds me of obviously this is a high end comp, but he reminds me of Jamar Chase. Like that's the type of player you're going to be getting hopefully if you take Malik Nabers early on in the draft. Like a guy who he can take the top off a defense at any given time. He's also very good. He can take a slant and go 60 yards with it. He can just his explosive stop-start ability. He could take like a little stop route and make guys miss and like explode into the open field. Like this is a Jamar Chase type player. I don't think he's quite as powerful as Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase has like that innate just power to his game. I think that people don't. He just doesn't like look that big, but he plays big. I don't think Malik Nabers has quite that much power to his game, but the explosiveness is certainly there. I think we saw that with all the numbers. He's essentially the same size and speed as Ja'Marr Chase. So I think that comp to me makes a lot of sense. And I think defenses are going to have to worry about him on every snap.
I love your shades of Ricky Bobby here in the draft guide.
Yeah, just wants to go fast. Yeah.
Yeah,
but yeah, like
perfect.
my real comp would be more like Ja'Marr Chase. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
That's
looking
one
at
of those
the
things,
ones
like,
that we have coming up and guessing who you're gonna. I was right on Malik Nabers, and I think I got your next one too. I want to see if I can go 2 for 2 on these.
Oh my gosh! So should we try to guess them before he says them?
No. Oh yeah, I like that. Let's see, because we could like talk a little about both guys.
All right, so next one we got on here is got that dog in him. Dave, who do you think he's going with here?
I think you're going with Odunze for this one, but we'll see. I think Odunze could be one of the next ones coming up as well.
That is where I was going as well. So let's see.
That is correct. Yep, that's right.
Boom.
All right.
Odunze. I was actually just watching a play. I think I was watching Michael Penix again, and I was like watching a play where Penix just threw it up. Odunze basically like went through the defender, tipped it up to himself, and then like caught it like falling onto his back and just stood up and like stared at the defender.
I know exactly what play you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah, like I'm like that to me is it's a great example of what he is. I don't think that embodies who he is, because obviously he's a great route runner. He's very good at separating. He can play at all three levels. Like there's a lot to like about Odunze's game, but obviously his ability to just dominate at the catch point is one of the sexier parts of, I think, his game. And, you know, he obviously, if you look at his contested catch rate, his ability to come down with those was like 70 something percent, 80%. So he's very, very good. Body control, balance, timing. He has late hands. He doesn't give away the fact that the ball is coming until the very last second. Like a lot of these high level traits that you like to see from receivers of his size and his ilk, like the guy that's going to be an X receiver, where, you know, separation isn't always going to be like, he's not like he's going to be wide open in the slot, you know, like most of the time. He's going to need to be a subtle separator who can use the little things at the catch point to get open and catch the football. He's proven that time and again, but I also think he's twitchy in the short area and he can route guys up too. So that's like, you know, because contested catch rate is sort of one of those things where it can be a red flag if you have like a lot of contested catches. Mm-hmm. But I don't really think that's a problem with Odunze, because you've seen him, you know, create separation and show really like nuanced route running so much. So I think it's not going to be like a problem for him to do that too.
So if I could totally put you on the spot here, Danny, I've been asking a few people this question, and it's something I wonder myself. Looking back at previous draft years, you know, everybody kind of has Odunze lumped in as like the wide receiver 3 of this draft class. Some people say he's wide receiver 2. How many classes over the last few years would he be the wide receiver 1 in? I mean, if you look last year, it was JSN, and I think you could make a strong argument to put Odunze ahead of him. The year before, Drake London. The year before that, I think Ja'Marr Chase, we're probably taking Chase ahead of Odunze, but then Henry Ruggs, Marquise Brown, DJ Moore is another one that you might be taking more. I mean, there's a strong argument that Odunze would have been the wide receiver 1 in like 4 of the last 6 draft classes.
Right. It almost is. It's bad luck for him that Marvin Harrison is in this class. I think some teams might have Malik Nabers as the number 1 guy too, and that's because of the pure explosiveness. But if you look back like last year, I think pretty easily he'd be the number 1 guy, both in like our eyes and in the NFL's eyes in particular. You go back a couple years with the Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, Drake London, Treylon Burks, Chris Olave class. I think the one thing that he had, and obviously Drake London had this too, which is size. Because I love Garrett Wilson in that class, but he was 6 foot, 183 pounds. Like he's a little beanpole. And obviously I think these smaller, skinnier receivers have sort of proven that it can work in the NFL more than we thought a few years ago. But I think the NFL still values guys with size. He's like, what, I don't know what Odunze is off the top of my head, like 213 or something like that. So having that like bulk and muscle and, you know, that I think that is something the NFL still highly values. So yes, I think going back a few classes, he probably would have been the number 1 guy in a lot of them.
Well, it's funny because like we start to look at these draft prospects and like, you've got to be really good at something. You've got to be the guy that has the elite speed or this or that. And then along comes a Odunze and you're like, well, you know, he's not the fastest guy. He's not the biggest guy. He's got to get a little bit better at route running, but he's still really good. And then you start to look at all the comps and you're like, oh, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald. And it's just like, all those dudes are pretty good. Like maybe we should just put some respect on Odunze.
Harmon just made the Adams comp yesterday, I believe. I just saw that video floating around on Twitter.
I mean, it's validating that Harmon had that comp too, because that's what mine is in the draft guide. And that's also what Solak, my podcast partner, came to independent of me, because he tries not to look at my comps as we like go through the different episodes. And we both kind of arrived at that. I think stylistically, of course, is what we're talking about. Obviously, we're not saying he's going to turn into one of the top 10 receivers of all time or whatever. But I think just like the role that he plays, the type of guy who can, who I think just like wins more on guile and savvy than like pure explosive sex. You know what I mean? He's not just beating a guy because he's faster than him. He's beating him because he's smarter and can utilize like leverage and body control and footwork and, you know, some of the higher level technique stuff. So I think that's why people like Odunze so much. And he's got that dog in him, you know, he's just like a physical, tough alpha type player. Like he embodies a lot of the traits I think NFL teams look for in these number one guys. That's why he's getting like the DeAndre Hopkins comps. Of course, DeAndre Hopkins wasn't that fast. He wasn't like, you know, that like
we'll still talk about his 40 time.
right. But you know, obviously he turned out okay in the NFL. You know, I'm hoping that Odunze doesn't have the career arc that Davante Adams has, at least in the beginning, because obviously there was a time there when even Packers fans, I think, were turning on Davante Adams, but clearly that pick turned out okay for them.
I think it took till year 4 for him to hit 1,000 yards. It was a slow start to his career. I'd say Odunze has sure hands too.
He's like an outlier.
That's the next one we're going to talk about is sure hands, and I think you could use that for Odunze as well. He's one of those guys that kind of checks every single one of these badges. Not quite as good as Caleb Williams, but like where you could have talked about Odunze for almost any of these.
Totally, and that's like I think the thing is he has like a really pretty complete skill set. Other than maybe yards after the catch, like I don't think he's super good after the catch, but that's sort of just picking nits because he can get open, he can catch the football. You know, he's good in high leverage situations. With the sure hand, what are we on? Sure hands now?
Yeah, sure hands. I'm guessing that you're going with Marvin Harrison Jr. here.
That was my guess as well.
That might be the lowest hanging fruit possible.
That would have been an obvious one. There's probably a good chance you guys were not going to guess this one. I'm going with Malik Washington out of Virginia.
Ooh, okay. I love Malik Washington.
Clearly more of like a day 2 guy, probably a 3rd rounder, something like that. Maybe a 4th rounder, I guess, if he falls a little bit further than we're expecting. But to me, he has all the makings of a very productive pro. I just think he's the number one thing, of course, that I mentioned or that I noticed about him is incredibly strong hands, especially when he's catching the football in traffic. You know, he's the type of guy who some of these guys are pretty frustrating to watch when you know, they're catching the football in traffic or catching the ball on a slant where it's like, you know, you're running and the ball comes in hot. It like bounces off your hands. You allow defenders to come through your body to like kind of break up the pass. You know, I guess the word you'd use is soft. Like he's not soft. He's so tough and physical and just like grip strength and like holding the ball through traffic and through contact. I think Malik Washington has that, like maybe the best in this class, just really, really strong hands, really reliable hands. In the short and intermediate area, he's also one of the best yards after the catch guys in terms of breaking tackles in this class. So there's a lot to like there. He's not very big, but this is one of the most productive receivers in college football last year. And I think in the right role, he can be a high volume pass catcher in the NFL. So he's one of my favorite sleepers in fantasy.
Yeah, I'm with you on Malik Washington. He's one of those guys that I think has every single thing that a team looks for, and then you just go to the like height profile, and you're like,
right,
he's 5'9". Okay, we'll have to like fashion a role for him. But I don't know. I think that we've seen enough NFL GMs care less and less about those things like the height and the 40 time, and they're just, this guy's good at football. Like, let's just find out a way to use him. And he's one of those guys, like you said, he was one of the best, I think, if not the best in the nation last year in yards after catch. And I mean, dude, 1,400 receiving yards was just absolutely bananas in a Virginia offense that wasn't that great for a guy that's so small. He's another one of those guys that like is consistently getting comped to Deebo Samuel, which I really wish we'd stop doing that. But if we are going to pick a guy, like I think he's probably closest.
My comp for him is Golden Tate. I think he's
okay. I like that.
I don't know what the word is, because Golden Tate. Yeah, right. I honestly, like Golden Tate, I think is another guy that's like Debo, one of one, where Golden Tate's gyroscopic balance and ability to break tackles was truly special. I don't think that Malik Washington has that gyroscopic balance that Golden Tate had, but just stylistically, his ability to break tackles, his ability to make things happen after the catch. I think he's another guy that's like got that dog in him where he's just really tough and physical. This is maybe not that important, but he had like one of the best vertical jumps of any receiver in the last few years, 42.5 inches. So clearly extremely explosive, and he's built like he's built like a brick house. He's 5'9", 191. So it's not, he's short, not small. He fits into that sort of category of like short, not small. So I don't know. I agree that I think he's going to be more scheme sensitive and coach sensitive than a lot of the high end receivers in this class. He's sort of a bizarro Malik Nabers though. Like he's explosive, he's yards after the catch, but he's really small or he's short, not small. But, I think obviously his size and he's probably going to be a slot guy only. So he's going to be more sensitive to how much a team plays through receiver sets, how much they throw over the middle of the field, that kind of stuff.
I just appreciate that you're a football guy's veteran. You know how to guest on these shows. We get a brick house. We get an F up earlier in the show. You're a professional here, Danny. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. Next one on here. We got Relentless Motor. This is normally one that you always hear with like a defensive guy, like a defensive end or a defensive lineman, something like that. So where are we going at here on offense for Relentless Motor?
Do you guys have a guess?
Blake Corum.
Oh, that's a really good one, Dave. Yeah, I have to go Blake Corum as well.
Damn, you got it. That's my guy. DK. Yeah, I was gonna say 2 for 2. Or I guess 2 for 3. The Washington one was kind of a left field guy, but yeah. Like Corum to me is just relentless motor. He is the motor of the offense, if you want to use cliches. The engine of the offense. He's just never runs out of energy. Tough, physical, runs low to the ground. He's sort of just like to use another cliche, sort of like the spark plug of an offense. And obviously in that Michigan offense, he scored like 1 billion touchdowns. So he's just the guy that kind of came to mind when I think of, a guy that they can just give the ball 30 times a game and let him go do his thing.
Yeah, I mean, Blake Corum, it's interesting. I think that there's such a wide range on these running backs. Some people have him as the running back 1. I've seen others have him as like running back 5 or 6. It almost feels kind of superfluous to try to rank these guys ahead of the draft, because it's all just going to be like, okay, who ended up on the Chargers? Who ended up on the Cowboys? Who got the big opportunity? Blake Corum right now, you've got him as what? It looks like you're running back 3 on that. Is there like a perfect spot that if he goes to, you're like, yes, I want all the Blake Corum on my fantasy teams?
Chargers.
I mean, you mentioned it. Obviously, the Chargers would be amazing. Reunite him with Jim Harbaugh and let him sort of run that Greg Roman offense that gives basically every running back like 7 yards a carry for the last like 10 years. So yeah, that would be the ideal situation, of course. But yeah, I mean, I could see him on a lot of teams. I could see him on the Cowboys too, just the type of players they like, the tough, physical, grinder type guys. He's not Zeke Elliott in terms of explosiveness, but I think like identity wise, he kind of brings the same thing that Zeke does. So yeah, I like you mentioned, landing spot's going to be really important. Things like I really like Trey Benson. He's my number 1 running back, but I fear the NFL is not going to like him quite as much as I do, because he's sort of a boom or bust runner. And then if Jonathon Brooks, he'd be my number 2 guy, but if he lands with the Cowboys, of course, he's like shooting way up the boards. And I think there's a lot of people connecting him to the Cowboys as like their future starter. So that, of course, would be sort of like the ideal landing spot for him. But I think those, Blake Corum, maybe more than the other running backs in this group, has a chance to be like an actual high volume runner in the NFL, especially if he continues to like heal up from the knee injury that I think affected him in the early part of last year, and get back to sort of like the elusiveness and explosiveness that he showed earlier on in his career, which I think he can do. So he could end up being like the number 1 running back in this class. It won't surprise me whatsoever in terms of like production, but I think landing spot is going to be sort of important for all 3 of these guys, or all the running backs in this class.
I try so hard to like stick to a process when it comes to dynasty rankings, and like Blake Corum, he's short, he's old, he's got an injury history, but then I just watch him play and I'm like, I don't care. I want all the Blake Corum I can on my dynasty
Yeah.
teams. Like he's like you said, I think relentless motor is like the perfect way to kind of epitomize the way that he plays.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, he's just like, he does that thing too, which I love, where he hides behind his offensive lineman when he's running. And so like the defense can't see where he is. He has like, there's so many, there's like, if you're watching the end zone angle, like where they're coming at you, there's so many plays on his tape where I'm like, I can't actually even see where he is. I have to like wait till he makes
then he just squirts out and scores a touchdown.
100%. So I love that about him. I think that's like one of the things I remember the most, is he just is so good at like drafting off of his offensive linemen as they're going through the hole and setting up guys at the second level, or, you know, you'll see him peak one way and get a defender to sort of commit to that side and then go the other way. He's just really naturally talented as a runner like that. So I think he's got a pretty good floor. We'll just see if he can reach his ceiling of like a high volume guy. I comped him to Jaylen Warren. That might be like, that might just be like the mid-range, obviously, comp, but you know, that's the type of player he reminds me of.
All right, so the next one we got on here is Gamer. Dave, I want to hear your guess because I have a guy in mind already.
You know, he already used Jayden Daniels, but I don't know. I when I think of Gamer, I think of a quarterback that can do things off script, and I think we've made the transition into running backs. I don't know where you're going with this one, Danny.
I'm actually going to say it's not a quarterback or a running back. I'm going to go with Keon Coleman. Ooh. A guy who can just body anyone, and he's one of those guys that, yeah, sure, he maybe didn't run well at the combine, and then we see him go through the gauntlet drills, and it's just second nature to him.
Yeah. All right. If that's wide receivers, I might go with Malachi Corley then. Maybe that's the Gamer here.
Okay.
You guys are on the right track with the position, but I went with a different receiver. I went with Adonai Mitchell for Texas. And the reason I did that is because I think when we're talking about Adonai Mitchell, like the Allen Iverson rant kind of comes to mind. We're talking about practice, you know, like like people are always, you know, kind of worried about what he's doing away from the football a lot of the time, because he is kind of loafing it on some routes and on the backside of the play, and there's some effort, I think, concerns that come with him, and there's of course huge question marks about like his overall production in college, which I think is like frankly scary. But that being said, like I love Adonai Mitchell's talent, I love his skill set, and I truly just loved his tape. Like originally when I first watched him, I had him as a first round guy. I've kind of softened a little bit on it because of just digging deeper into the analytical part of his profile is obviously not very good. Just his overall statistics in college, his you know, target share and you know, targets per route and everything is frankly very concerning. But I think the talent is there for him to be, you know, like a elite player in the NFL if he can put it all together. That being said, the reason I went with Gamer is because the dude just shows up in big moments. Like if you go back the last 3 years, 2 years ago in the national championship game, he caught the go-ahead touchdown, 40-yard touchdown for Georgia. Last year, so not this last year, but the year before, he caught a game-clinching touchdown against Ohio State in the semifinal. And then in January against Washington, against my Dogs, he caught a fade pass in the end zone where he like elevated up and kind of like hung in the air, caught the ball on the corner of the end zone. This was after he was like yelling at the sideline for them to get him the football. Like he's got that Gamer, like that, give me the ball. Like when it matters, I'm going to make a play for you type of thing. And so like, that was why I thought of Adonai Mitchell for that one.
You know, we wish casted all the time with these guys that are like deemed like late first round talents, but like I can't stop thinking about what he'd be like in Kansas City, in Buffalo. That's just the ideal scenario for a guy like Adonai Mitchell.
Yeah. He's the type of guy who can, I think he could play obviously on the outside. He's really good tracking the football down the field on deep shots. Obviously he's good at the catch point in terms of body control and ability to like twist and contort and get the football. But he's also, the way he moves reminds me a little bit of CeeDee Lamb, just like sort of twitchy. I don't even know what the best term is, just like twitchy in the short area. And he has a similar body type, I guess, to CeeDee Lamb. So I think he could be pretty good in the slot too. So again, this is like you said, wish casting is the right term, because I think there's a world in which I could see him be an elite NFL receiver. He's of course one of the most athletic receivers in combine history. But typically guys of his profile bust because we just get too enamored with like the athleticism and all that, but the production just never was there and never shows up. So he's to me one of the most confounding prospects in this entire class. I'm still going to have him ranked high, and I'm still going to take shots on him probably, I think, in dynasty drafts, but I'm going to be worried up until the point he starts actually producing, because he's just one of those guys that I think we can kind of like, it's like a shiny thing. He's like, we get a little bit too enamored with his prototype and it doesn't end up working out.
Yep.
All right. So the next one here we've got is refined technique. And if it's not one of these scrappy gym rat, well, hold on. If it's not one of these scrappy gym rat receivers like Ladd McConkey or Ricky Pearsall, I'm going to be upset. So DK, who are we going with?
Wait, who is your guess?
A scrappy gym rat is who Alfredo's going with. I'm going with Maserati Marv here.
Yeah, you're right. Marvin Harrison.
Oh, right.
Sorry.
All right.
I went another way with it. That refined technique thing, that's definitely funny to think of, like, oh yeah, this guy's a coach's son. He's just in the
first one in, last one out.
Yeah, 100%. Could have gone with that cliche. I think when I thought of this one though, Marvin Harrison's ability to catch the football. Like obviously we talk about everything else, but catching the football, I feel like when it comes to receivers, it's like the last thing we mentioned. It's like, oh yeah, he catches the football. So,
and it's like the primary part of their position. It's like in the name.
It's in the description. Yeah. His ability to scoop low passes, especially for a guy his height, go behind his body, sort of like twist and contort. He's very reliable hands. Like his hands are really good. He's a good catcher of the football. Add in all the other stuff. The fact that he's like a high-end athlete, great length, big-time production. I think, undeniable confidence, all that stuff, like run after the catchability, all the stuff that you want from like a number one receiver. He has that, but also he's like really technically refined at catching the football, which I love. So he was the kind of guy that I just think he has such a high floor because he's a technician as a receiver. So that's kind of the type of player that I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is. I think I did consider Ladd McConkey here because I think McConkey is another guy that just like his footwork is really refined. We'll give Alfredo half
a point then.
Yeah, his like the way he uses his footwork and like body positioning and all that, I think is very impressive. But Marvin Harrison is the technician of the group.
All right, so we got two more on here. Next one is rare versatility. Dave, I want to hear your guess. I already got mine. I'm going with Brock Bowers.
Yep.
Yeah. Damn it. You guys, you're on to me.
Hey, believe it or not, we study these rookies too.
I mean, you also published a 70 prospect rookie guide, so the answers are a little bit out there.
They're also probably. I think for most of these, I have these. They match up on like the draft guide. I think there's a couple that I kind of like mixed up here, but like, Brock Bowers is my answer here. His ability to be, we talked about Deebo Samuel, comping people to Deebo Samuel. Like, I think Bowers is the most Deebo Samuel player of this class.
I haven't heard that, but I love it.
He's different, of course.
He's not like a regular tight end. Like when we're talking about these tight ends that we put in these draft classes,
he's a cool tight end.
Yeah. Like he's just not using the traditional way. Like every time someone says generational and they think they're referring more to the skill, like this is actually a guy who might be generational in terms of his usage, and the skill is actually really good too.
Right. And so like, obviously I think he's a good route runner. He's the type of guy that can be utilized over the middle of the field, slants. He's a decent blocker, I think, especially for his size. Like he puts in the effort and he's a big physical, tough guy. I think he has, he's going to have to get better. I think as almost every single tight end going into the NFL does. But to me, it's like his ability as a run after the catch guy, like he's a freakish athlete. Obviously people were like, I think knocking him down a little bit because of that picture that he took with Gronk. It's just like an ick. People saw that and were like, oh, him? Like, I don't know about
Travis
this,
Kelce on the beach last weekend. Like, believe it or not, like these guys don't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like you need to have a little meat on the,
Have you ever seen Patrick Mahomes with his shirt off? Like sometimes these guys
feel
are just
good
like,
about myself.
Yeah. But like Brock Bowers, the guy he's powerful, explosive, and incredibly twitchy in the short area. Like his acceleration, I think, is what makes him so special. And so they utilized him on sweeps. They utilized him on screenplays. They utilized him. I think there was even a few plays where he sort of like line up in the backfield. So that's why like the Deebo Samuel comp actually works for him. He's a very different player, of course, in a lot of ways, but the way that you can deploy him in your offense as a guy that's going to like make a defense go, oh, hold on, what are we doing here? Like that is, I think, a big value to him. I worry, this is something that of course you have to worry about with like almost every player, but like, I think with Bowers, I'm worried that we're going to find some jabroni coach that just wants to like turn him into like a regular tight end. And I'm like, and then we're going to
such Arthur a good Smith. Usage of the word jabroni.
It's just like this is like the thing I wake up at night. I'm like, oh God, if some like stupid coach, like this is coming from my experience, but like the Seahawks tried to turn Jimmy Graham into like an inline blocking tight end. Did anyone think that was going to work? No. Like, what are we doing here? So anyways, like, this is like my worry that some coach is going to be like, oh yeah, we could use him. He's a good player. Or maybe like there's a disconnect between the GM and the coach, whatever. I think he has a little more sensitivity.
Well, I think the hope here, he's not huge. And I think that's a lot of the time that you see, like, he fits more as kind of like a big slot guy. He's 6'3". He's not a 6'5" David Njoku where they want to play him in line. Or like you said, Jimmy Graham, 6'6". He's more of a big slot than he is a tight end. So I think we see a usage with him similar to what we saw last year with like Dalton Kincaid and Sam Laporta, where they're playing 60, 70, 80% of the snaps out of the slot. Of course, there could be, like you said, a jabroni coach, Arthur Smith, turns him into Kyle Pitts 2.0. But I think most coaches are going to recognize that this guy can line up in the slot and that he can run routes and he can do things after the catch. Hopefully.
Yeah. Maybe one of the best, if Arthur Smith had to have gotten hired this offseason, it's like probably the best that he landed in Pittsburgh.
Where he has a Darnell Washington. Like he doesn't
need
Darnell
to Washington.
He
already has Patty Fries. Like, thank God they don't need a tight end. They're very unlikely to take a tight end in the first round. So like feel pretty safe there, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. He could be the next Sam Laporta. I think he could be utilized pretty much exactly like Sam Laporta with like additional bonus of the fact that you can actually, like the way like the Eagles use Dallas Goedert comes to mind is like Goddard is one of the best screen pass catching tight ends in the NFL. Like he's got really quick feet, really good explosive like movement in the first few yards. And that's why I think they utilize him on those screenplays a lot, is because he can kind of make the first guy miss and then pick up positive yards. So like some combination of like a Goddard / Laporta where you're using him a lot on screens, but you're also getting him involved on slants. He can win quickly and get the ball out to him quickly. He can make guys miss after the catch. He can be a red zone type of weapon. I don't know. I'm very excited to see where he lands because I think he has elite talent. He's one of the top just overall players in this draft class in my mind. But I think, again, he's a little bit more sensitive to landing spot than, some of the top receivers, I'd say.
Oh my God. The Pittsburgh Steelers have the chance to do just the funniest thing. God. A little more depressing than funny, but
I suppose I could talk myself into it since they don't have a number 2 receiver, I guess. And maybe like he's the number 2 receiver, but God, I just don't want to go there.
I would vomit. All right. Last one on here. Smooth footwork. I'm going to guess a running back. I'm going to go with Jonathon Brooks, my guy out of Texas.
That's exactly who I was thinking of. Yeah.
Damn you.
That's what I was expecting.
Yes. Yeah. Let's go.
You guys are good.
That's like his main thing. Like that's what he's good at. He is. You used the word slalom earlier for Jayden Daniels, and that's exactly how it looks for Jonathon Brooks. It's so smooth.
Yeah, he is sweet. He has sweet feet. He's got like there's a couple of plays. I posted a video of it like a while back, and you guys could search it on Twitter or whatever. But like there was even one play where he literally does like a grapevine. Like he hits the line of scrimmage and his back foot goes behind his like plant foot and he like scoots out to the outside and like makes a guy miss. And he has just really good lateral agility, really good balance. He has like, there's a trait and a talent a lot of the top running backs have where they can anticipate where a tackler is going to try and go and then chop their feet and jump over that tackle attempt. Because a lot of times, like, defenders are coming in low, trying to like take out the legs of a running back. And I think the best running backs have the ability to sort of like either chop their feet and make that guy miss or jump over the attempted tackle. So you have to have the ability to anticipate where like tackles are coming from. But I think he has that. And that's like one of his defining traits, his ability to just use his footwork to avoid tackles, stay on his feet, his good balance. I don't think he's like the fastest guy, but he has sort of his smoothness is what's the word? What's the word they use for all like it's deceptively fast. I was gonna say, what do they use for like all the white receivers? He's
like sneaky fast.
Yeah, he's deceptively fast because I think he looks like he's going slow because he's so smooth, but then he kind of like scoots around and shoots past defenders. He's really sort of got that short area quickness and acceleration. I think that makes him really good. I don't think he has top end like runaway speed, breakaway speed, but he's definitely fast enough to make guys miss. I think obviously the only concern here is coming off an injury. He doesn't have a ton of experience in college, and because he was playing behind Bijan and then he was playing behind Roshan and a couple other guys. And, I think there's still some big question marks about like what he can be, but I think he has the talent and like the footwork is incredible. I think he's a good pass catcher. So he's got a pretty good skill set to be a really good player in fantasy.
And you already talked about the smoke with the Dallas Cowboys. Now we got rumors that came out this weekend about them being interested in bringing back Zeke. I mean, that just seems like the perfect, like you never hear it, but like a bridge running back. Like you bring in Zeke, he knows the system. He's going to do fine there. He'll play. They'll ramp Jonathon Brooks up halfway through the season. Just makes so much sense. And yeah, I think one way or another, if the landing spots that we've kind of, wish casted or hoped for here, Blake Corum in Los Angeles, Jonathon Brooks in Dallas, I think that's kind of your RB1A, RB1B in Dynasty if that happens.
Yeah, for sure. I love that fit. I love the especially with like a team like Dak, I think is not afraid to check it down, use his running backs in the passing game. That'd be a great fit for him. I also love the fit of Brock Bowers in Dallas. I know that people like Jake Ferguson, but just get Bowers to Dallas. If he falls that far, that would be an awesome fit too.
I've acquired way too much Jake Ferguson in Dynasty this offseason for me to
feel
good about that one. So no, please.
I think Ferguson is good, but like he's not the type of player who you're like, oh yeah, we don't need Brock Bowers,
Bowers in
scrappy
Indy.
gym rat man.
I think that's what we're going to end up seeing. Bowers in Indy, kind of be that safety valve for Anthony Richardson. That's what I want. We're talking about our favorite look. They need a number 2 behind Pittman. It makes a lot of sense. And then Steichen, like you said, you already talked about Dallas Goedert and his role in Philadelphia. It just makes so much sense for Brock Bowers to play that same exact role in Indianapolis.
I kind of like that. That's a good point. My first reaction when you said Indy was like they already have like 7 tight ends, but when you have 7
I was also
going to
say
you're worried about Cox. Yeah,
right. He'd be more of a receiver, so that makes a lot of sense to me. I like that. The second point is a great point.
Well, this was a lot of fun. We were able to go through 12 different prospects here and even a few other ones that we got to mention here. But DK, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second because I know this is the ongoing joke on the Ringer NFL Draft Podcast. Do you know the URL for your draft guide?
NFLdraft.theringer.com, I believe.
Boom, you nailed it.
Find it. Yeah.
Awesome.
We'll make
We'll
put a link in the description.
Yes. No, I just really wanted to test them right here. But man, thank you so much for coming on. Seriously, this is your guys' show is one of those that I listen to every single week. Every time a new episode comes out, man, I'm there. For those of you that are listening to us, maybe have not listened to the Ringer NFL Draft Podcast, which is also the Ringer the Ringer Fantasy Football Podcast as well.
Right.
You guys kind of do a 2-for-1. Please make sure you're subscribed to that, listening to that. Check these guys out. They are absolutely awesome. That's going to do it for us today. Big thank you to our guest, Danny Kelly. Dave, big thanks to you up in your log cabin in the middle of the mountains. Don't know exactly where you are.
It's very cozy. Yeah,
it is. I'm my wife's got some work to do in Telluride this week, so I just tagged along and we got a rental house and oh wow, here looking at the mountains. There's some snow coming down right now. If you saw, I was kind of dependent on natural light for today's episode, so it started off like sunny and it's just been slowly getting darker and darker and darker as the episode. I'm turning into a vampire here, but
nice.
Yeah, spending the week out in the mountains.
You're about to do some shot skis. You know about shot skis?
Oh yeah. I'm pretty sure we could take those old skis off the end and turn it into one if we really wanted to.
100%.
Are those snowshoes in the background, like the tennis racket shoes that you wear
here,
to the snow?
Snowshoes here. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, the most Colorado thing ever, Dave. Well, enjoy it, man. We're going to be back again next week where we're going to be going through the rookie superlatives. Who is most likely to be a bust? Which wide receiver is most likely to be a cardio king? Which running back actually has potential to be a top 12 fantasy running back? We're going to talk about all that next week. Thank you so much for watching and listening all the way through. We'll see you guys next time. Adios.